100,000 people, and you got certain specific high representatives of the community. The children are going to be raised with these traditions as their traditions and their practices, yeah, and it's going to be relating to their tribe and whatever else. So it is in a similar way to where you were just trying to say, well, you know, it's not comparable to, let's say, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever else. That's not fair to say, or it's not just to say that, because the traditions of those people would be like that. Would you not agree, Shakara? Within themselves, before any interruption with the Sunnis or the white Christians or Portuguese or whatever else, they would have been practicing those things, correct?
Define your concept of original.
In the sense that however they were found at the time, that let's say a 200-year period, continuous, 500 years of continuation of a tradition. And when I say original, what I mean is this. This group grew up as this particular man being their main, let's say the Hungan in Voodoo, right? So he's the person they go to interpret dreams, to give them guidance on politics, to give them guidance in relation to herbs, to give them guidance in relation to laws and behavior. He assists in regards punishment in everything in the law. And I'm saying it would have to all be the most, you know, in relation to why things happen in life, the philosophy, the whole lot. It's all going to be consistent. Do you get what I'm saying? Because otherwise, the whole ancestor thing wouldn't even make any sense if you got ancestors all over the place.
Isa, I'm not denying. Okay, I'm lost as to why the individual expressions are so important to everybody. I'm a bit lost.
Right, I'll tell you why. Because when there's criticism, let's say, of so-called Abrahamic faiths, yeah, and people are trying to say that we either sell out or we're not.
You're answering for yourself, you're not answering.
Hold on. I'm answering for a lot of people. Don't worry about that. I'm saying when the claim is that there are not these similarities when there are. When you've got it so wishy-washy and it has no foundation and it's like the water, then you can sink. But once we get you onto dry ground and you're standing firm on your square, we can now compare like for like. We can now say, hold on. We can now say, where people have said we've left our African spiritual system and tradition, we can now say, right, what you're claiming we should be practicing is this thing here, which either you're not practicing yourself or you're editing out and saying, well, you're no longer practicing that, but you're taking the best of all of these, which is fine, but we just need to know. If we're going to have that discussion, we need to know Wagwan.
Yeah, I've explained that from
excellent point. That is, excellent point. That is, come on, get me. Like, and let me just speak. Let me just speak on that. Like, I agree. And the thing is, yeah, it's like, and that was my original question. That was the line of questioning, because it's like you said, Isa, you mentioned the ancestors. Yeah, like, how can you be claiming to dealing with the ancestors if you're dealing with everybody's ancestors? You get me? Different. You're not dealing with yours. If you're dealing with all these mix of different cultures and tribes, yeah, and different systems, you can't be dealing with your own ancestors, because your own ancestors were a specific tribe in it or whatever.
They weren't. That's the point. They weren't.
So your ancestors, you know for a fact, your ancestors were dealing with Kemet, Ife, and Ashan.
No, sorry, my ancestors were not a specific tribe.
So what were they?
They were a mixture of different so-called tribes.
No, but you can't ask you, because you come from the diaspora. We're talking about people that have had a continuous ancestry, at least 1,000, let's say 1,000 years, and they're talking about their ancestry over 1,000 years. I'm saying they're going to be talking about their traditions and what they've been doing 1,000 years. They're going to be teaching more or less the same cosmology. How created.
I'm going to go over there and yours is the same as theirs. It's like, it's all, you know what I'm saying? He's going to go over there and tell them that.
But I don't know why anybody has a problem with anyway. I'm going to focus on explaining African spirituality today, and answering questions pertaining to that. But I think that the idea is that let me not go down that road.
Shaka,
I do have a question. I do have a question in regards to the topic.
You're avoiding the content because you said what's going on today. It says African spiritual systems, right? So there's a plural there, right? and therefore
I'm not denying, but bro, this is the point.
no, I'm not saying you're denying that. Hold on. I'm just saying in relation to what you just said. You said African spirituality, and I'm saying that's a singular. When it says African spiritual systems, again, now when we look at them as different systems, we can say, right, this one will work, this one don't, or the problems with this, the problems with that.
Issa, with all due respect, yeah, if that's what you need to be able to tap into what I am saying, then fine. I am describing the thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's true, man. Describe the thing.
Right? I'm saying if a man can't understand that, then that's cool. But you're asking me questions in relation to what man deals with, and I'm giving you the answers. That's it.
Not me personally, Chakra. I was trying to create a meeting point between you and Ezra.
If man need to pin me down to a particular understanding that they can come at me a certain way. That's not the problem. It's not my problem.
No, Chakra. I'm less concerned with your personal thing as to what you can represent, because I'm saying even if
the fact is, if I'm saying Ether, let's say for example I deal with the Mossi people, yeah, that now reside in what is called Burkina Faso, yeah. The Mossi, right? Their culture develops, yeah, as in the context, yeah, of the enslavement period, whereby there are various different groups, yeah, who are fleeing persecution in various different ways, either from enslavement or religious persecution, because they won't convert. Yeah, right. Yeah. And so they don't have a singular origin in terms of an individual people.
That's why I gave you 1,000 years of continuous. That's why I gave the example.
Yes. But hear what I'm saying, all right? What's it called? Then now you have the Mossi that have a similar origin, yeah? What's it called? But today they have a unique expression, yeah, of the thing. Okay.
But
that's fine,
brother.
Question
in regards to the topic.
It doesn't contradict exactly what I'm saying, bro. Because you know as well as I do, there were certain times where
I'm saying that my understanding is not a contradiction. Yeah, it's not a contradiction to see synthesis and cultural unity in African spiritual systems. That's not a contradiction.
No, I have a personal question. You have in the tribe of Africa, there's a tribe of people called the ostrich people, and the reason why they're called the ostrich people is because of their feet. It looks very it's like 3 toes. It looks kind of bird-like because they practice incest. There's also another group of they're called the ostrich people. I don't know the tribe in Africa. Africa.
Really?
Yes, sir. And there's another group of people who believe, I don't know the name or the tribe, but it was a documentary a long time ago. They believe in amputating albinos. They believe that they will have angelic powers. Would you consider these two practices of incest and amputation of albinos an African spiritual practice?
No.
Oh, sugar, yeah, I've seen that before.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
So you're talking about the Vadoma, right? Or the Doma.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, that rings the bell.
Is that who's that? Sorry.
Yeah. So the Doma or the Vadoma, also known as Dima, are the tribe living in the Kenyaba region in North Zimbabwe. So they've got. I've seen this image before. But I didn't know you're saying it's because of incest. Is that what you're saying, brother?
Is it an image you said? An image?
No. Are you saying it's because of incest? That in other words, they have these weird kind of feet, which he said ostrich feet, right? So I'm saying, is the reason why they end up with feet like that because of incest, or is there something else? Where did you get the idea of incest? Was it Bernie Bay?
It was from the tribe itself. I thought
So the name Vadoma is also used in the Zambezi region for a semi-mythical people characterized as magical. Blimey, like imagine if a whole group have feet like that. Can somebody get that? Boy, that's a different image, boy. Wow, that's.
Yeah, I can't speak to the Vandoma people. I don't know enough about them to make a judgment on their system. So I wouldn't presume to do so.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, if you think of it like this, with the question that we're answering today, yeah, if African spiritual systems are so good, why are we losing war? Did you lot start off answering that and then you rolled off into this?
No, we never got to that at all. I was being asked about my God concept, and then who was it? And then Ezra came on with his line of question. That's where you came in. So that's what.
Okay, good. So now we could get to the question, yeah?
If you want to.
Yeah, man, let's do that. So if African spiritual systems are so good, why are we losing the war? So the question is, what war are we having, I guess? What constitutes the African spiritual system?
Yeah.
And what is the context of losing? Some would say we're not losing, some would say we're winning. So some 3 good points there. Shakara, go ahead.
So you want me to answer the basic question directly, yeah?
Yeah, if you could deal with all 3 points that I put. So spiritual system, it says why are we losing? It presupposes that we're losing. And the war, some people may not think we're in a war. So if you can say that we are, we're not, and so on, are we losing or we not? And what's the spiritual system, African spiritual system?
Okay, so African spiritual systems, yeah. I suppose that question kind of presupposes the political expression of these things, right? The political application of what a spiritual system would be. So we're talking about cosmologies and cultures, yeah, that are indigenous, yes, to the peoples of Africa. Okay, the continent we now know as Africa. Okay. my brother Dalian Adolfo is in the chat. Who is the one of the authors of the Ancestral Voices film series, and the Ancestral Voices book. Yeah, he's the author of the book. So yeah, obviously, brother Dalian, if you I'm not telling you to come on. I'm not even encouraging you, but if you feel like you want to, then feel free to join man on the panel. I'm sure Brother Veli will make space for you in the thing. So yeah, the link is in the description.
I don't mind giving up my spot, Veli, for such a brother.
No. Me and step out. Sorry.
All right, big up, brother.
Mordecai. Make sure you reach back later, yeah?
Yeah, man. Me have it, man. Don't worry about it, man.
Listen. Yeah. So yeah.
Are you in that Welcome Home group? That Welcome Home Israel and Hangouts. I need to send you some stuff. I was looking for you, man.
Yeah, add me to that, Ezra. Add me to that.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, man.
All right, so Daniel. All right, so he said he's gonna jump on, but he won't be here long. Veli, if you're about, and anybody who's got Veli's number, holler at him and let's make him know. Say a brother trying to get on the panel. Oh, he said nice. Okay, cool.
No, man, come on, the man. Dalian.
Yeah, it's up to you, Dalian. It's up to you. I'm good around there still. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's up to you, bro. But I think, at the same time, brother Dalian, because I'm not a quote unquote continental African, what's it called? My authenticity is in question, brother Dalian. And you being a continental, you carry a certain level of authenticity that, unfortunately I just don't have because my ancestors were enslaved in the Americas. So my Africanness is always in question. So yeah, it would be helpful. But at the same time, to answer the question, the African spirituality or African spiritual systems, yeah, in the political sense, is a term that is designed to encompass the unified expression of those things, yeah. So in the term African spirituality or African spiritual systems, yeah, we are dealing with the relatedness, yes, of these systems politically and culturally, yeah. Culturally, in the sense of the fact that of one. Shared ideas developed in relation to our understanding of our environment, and also shared culture based upon the migratory patterns and cultural development of African people. Politically speaking, this is because when it comes to the sojourn of African people, our spiritual systems have been demonized, our spiritual systems have been attacked, yeah, and no individual spiritual system was exempt from the designation of demonization from the religions that demonize them, if that makes sense. They never came and said, well, these people worship a one God and these people don't, so these are pagans and these are not pagans. That never happened, yeah. But all was summarily dismissed Nobody, in relation to the previous conversation, nobody felt that they needed to differentiate between different specific individual expressions of African spirituality when they apply terms like heathen and pagan to them. So we ourselves don't feel that we need to be preoccupied with different individual expressions of African spirituality when we say African spirituality. Yeah? All right. So I hope the first.
Well, I mean, do you mind if I comment on that last bit? Because I would say that in coming together or sorting out some of our, where all of us have been damaged, you could say, in that situation, I think it's unfair to allow what the past has been, in the sense that when we were brainwashed to think that anything that come from Africa is heathen, is primitive, is anti-Christ, is anti-God. That was then. So if we're having an awakening now, when we're going into it deeper, then obviously that should be available so that we can bridge some of the gaps and have more understanding. Don't you think, Shakara?
But I'm not that the awakening is not the problem. Yeah. But you have to bear in mind that the term African spirituality has been developed by people that are going through and evolving that awakening. You know what I'm saying? So if a one who's not a part of that may not appreciate that designation, they're entitled to their opinion. Yeah. But those who are actually engaged in that process are dealing with that. And to be honest with you, I've never come across anybody I've never come across an Ifa practitioner, yeah, for example, who has a problem with the term African spirituality. Never come across that. I've never come across any practitioner of an indigenous African spiritual system that has a deep seated issue with the term African spirituality and how it's applied. Some of them do guard against the idea of homogeneity. Yes, we have to recognize the differences and the variations and so on and so forth. But they don't have the same issue. The only people that I've come across that have an issue with the phrase are Africans who are not practicing African spiritual system.
Yeah, but Shaka, can you agree that the term African spirituality is a generic term for a whole massive group, like thousands of different spiritual systems?
Yes.
So, like, when you say according to African spirituality, and can you understand where that can be a bit weird? Because there's so many.
Yes, I can, because ones like yourself are not a part of that process of the evolution of this concept. Yeah, which is why I'm explaining it. Which is why when I'm explaining it, yeah, it would do well for brothers and sisters. Yeah? If you're not familiar with the concept of African spirituality, to try and understand. I am not an individual. Bear in mind, bro. Bear in mind, I am not an individual that has just come up with my own thing. Yeah.
Again, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, I am aware of African spirituality. I told you I've studied under Elder Kofi. I've studied many different African spiritual systems. Yeah, maybe not to the highest level, but I've studied it. So what I'm saying is, when you're saying African spirituality says this, and I'm saying, well, which one? Because none of them, according to the ones I've studied, the same. Like, that's where the problem is. You using it as too broad of a statement. Yeah, all right. And get me.
I suggest
you'd be saying, well, according to Ifa, listen, you can't just say African spirituality, because not all of them say the same thing.
But I can.
You can't.
All of them are different. No, Shakra, he's saying in a discussion, yeah, it doesn't. No, that's fine. What I'm saying is, in a discussion, yeah, if you've got 5 people on a panel and they all practice the big label African spirituality, but they're 5 different spiritual systems, then we need to know which one you're dealing with, because we might have more in common or agree with one and not another. But then, hold on. So if we're dissing one of them, and then somebody says you're against African spirituality, but we like one of them, how is that going to work? So you need to know specifically, we have a problem with this one, but not with this one.
But Isa, yeah, you would know more than most that when I refer to African spirituality and African spiritual systems, and by the way, the term, because the point was made that African spiritual systems is in the title, plural. Ask Belly if he never got the terminology African spiritual systems from Shakara.
No, brother, I understand that. All I'm saying,
That's not what we're talking about, is it?
Evidently, the plurality that is involved with what I'm talking about is understood by the language that I am using that has been adopted by the G Block today. Okay, let's point that out firstly. And Issa, you will know more than most, yeah, that generally speaking, when I refer to African spiritual systems and I explain a concept, I will give examples of how that concept manifests itself in different systems. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I don't just say African spirituality says and leave it at that. I try to explain, yeah, how that concept is expressed within systems, within languages. Yeah, I do try to do that all the time. Now, I don't speak all of the languages on the continent, and so I won't be able to give all of the different expressions. Yeah, that's not going to be the case. I don't make that claim. I've never made that claim. The only claim I make is to cultural unity and cultural synthesis. That's it. Yeah.
I hear that, my brother. The only reason why I'm putting what it is, I like to get to the crux of the matter when I see there's a problem, and I'm saying where I find a lot of the frustration for the other brothers is that they find that they haven't got something specific that's detailed that they can say, well.
Wait. What's it? Deli, I need to listen.